He collapsed mid-sentence, and what he whispered from the floor left the world breathless. Was it a medical emergency or a divine encounter? 20,000 people watched in stunned silence as Elon Musk revealed a secret he never meant to share. What he said next could change your life forever. Before we continue this incredible story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel because tomorrow we have another inspiring story you won't want to miss. The lights dimmed as a sea of 20,000 people buzzed with anticipation. Cameras rolled, flashes burst, and all eyes turned to the stage as Elon Musk emerged, dressed in his signature black suit, calm and poised. The crowd roared, but he only gave a slight nod, stepping toward the podium like a man with something urgent to say. His hands gripped the edges, his eyes scanned the room, and just as he opened his mouth to speak, he stopped. A flicker of confusion crossed his face. Then, without warning, his knees buckled. The microphone hit the floor with a crack, echoing through the vast space. Elon's body crumpled as if the weight of the world had finally pulled him down. A wave of gasps surged through the auditorium. Someone screamed. Security dashed forward. A medic reached for him. Cameras wavered, unsure whether to zoom in or look away. But then, Elon's hand twitched. Slowly, shakily, he raised it. "Wait," he whispered. His voice was barely audible, but the microphone on his lapel caught every word. The crowd froze. "I need to say something." Silence. Thick, breathless, complete. 20,000 people stopped moving. Millions watched from screens around the world. What could he possibly say in that moment? Elon Musk's hand gripped the microphone cord as he slowly lifted himself off the stage floor. His breath came in shallow bursts, his face pale as ash, and sweat trickled from his brow. A hush blanketed the packed auditorium. Even the security team paused, unsure whether to intervene or bear witness to something none of them could understand. With trembling fingers, Elon steadied himself against the podium. He blinked hard, eyes scanning the stunned crowd, and then leaned closer to the microphone. "I was gone," he said, voice low and shaking. "For 47 seconds, I was gone." The words rippled through the crowd like a wave crashing against stone. Some gasped, others reached for their phones. Most just stared, frozen, unsure what to believe. Elon took another breath. "This wasn't the first time," he continued. "3 weeks ago, I had a cardiac episode. Minor, they said. I collapsed in my office. No one knew. I told no one." The confession hit hard. A man known for control and calculated precision now laid bare a vulnerability the public had never seen. "But something happened while I was unconscious. Something I can't explain. Something science can't explain." The crowd leaned forward. Even viewers online could feel the tension. Elon paused. His hand trembled at the podium. Then he whispered, "I met Jesus Christ." The words fell into the silence like a thunderclap. The atmosphere shifted. Disbelief, awe, confusion. Emotions collided in the space between what the world thought they knew and what they had just heard. The crowd remained frozen, the echo of Elon Musk's last words still suspended in the air. Cameras zoomed in on his face. Drawn, vulnerable, almost unrecognizable from the poised executive the world was used to. He took a moment, eyes glassy, and then continued. "It wasn't a dream," he said softly, "and it wasn't a hallucination. I've read the research, I know the science. But this, what I experienced, was different. It wasn't brain misfire or oxygen deprivation. It was truth." He paused, the weight of his next words pressing heavily on his chest. "There was light, not the kind you can measure in lumens. This light was alive. It knew me. It saw through me. I didn't walk toward it. It pulled me, like gravity, like love. A few people in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. Some bowed their heads. Others stared in disbelief. And then he spoke. Not with words, not like we're used to. It was like he was inside me, speaking straight to my soul. He said my name, Elon. And in that moment, I felt more known than I ever have. Elon's voice cracked. I laughed at him, he admitted. I told him he had the wrong guy, that I was a man of reason, of logic, that I didn't even believe he was real. He blinked, a tear sliding down one cheek. But he didn't get angry, he didn't argue, he just smiled. A smile that felt like it held the weight of eternity. And then he said, I don't call the qualified, I qualify the called. The auditorium was still. No coughs, no shuffling feet, just silence. Ellie told me I had a mission, Elon whispered. Not to build rockets or colonize Mars, but to warn the world, to tell you that time is running out. He gripped the podium tighter, visibly trembling. And that's why I'm standing here today, he said. You thought I'd collapsed. You thought this was a medical emergency. He glanced around the room, eyes filled with conviction. But it wasn't an accident. The words hung in the air like smoke. This was part of the message. Elon Musk stood still for a moment, breathing heavily, the air thick with silence. Then his voice returned, lower now, steadier, but marked with something unfamiliar. I used to believe my mission was Mars, he said, eyes scanning the crowd. To make life multiplanetary, to ensure the survival of our species. That was my purpose. That was everything. He paused, letting the weight of those words linger. A murmur rippled through the audience. Confusion, disbelief, perhaps awe. But that's changed, he said. After what I saw, what I heard, I realize now my mission isn't about space. It's about heaven. Gasps echoed in the hall. Some people blinked rapidly. Others sat motionless. The statement landed like thunder in a room already shaken. I argued with him, Elon confessed, his voice beginning to tremble again. I told him I wasn't qualified to talk about faith, that my past was filled with mistakes, that I wasn't someone people would believe. He looked down briefly, then lifted his gaze again. I listened, Elon said. And then, he said, you don't have to be perfect, you just have to be willing. At that moment, the camera zoomed in. His eyes shimmered with tears, one slowly breaking free and sliding down his cheek. Elon didn't wipe it away. For the first time in my life, he continued, I felt like I wasn't being judged by what I'd done, but by what I was willing to do next. A hush fell over the arena. This wasn't the Elon Musk they knew. This was someone new. Someone cracked open, reshaped, and raw with truth. I've spent years building machines, launching rockets, chasing the stars, he said, but none of that compares to what he asked of me. He didn't want my achievements. He wanted my heart. He turned slowly to face the main camera, locking eyes with the millions watching around the world. And now, he said softly, I have something to ask you. The moment held, breathless, suspended. The man known for numbers and neurons, for engines and innovation, was about to ask something that no one expected, and no one would ever forget. Elon Musk took another breath, steadied by the silence around him. His voice, though soft, carried through the entire auditorium. There was a question, he asked me, one I haven't been able to shake. He glanced toward the stage floor, where the memory still lingered like a shadow. He asked, if you knew I was real, what would you be willing to sacrifice to tell others? The crowd shifted. It was no longer a presentation, it was a confession. Musk's shoulders lowered, not in defeat, but in surrender. I didn't answer him right away, Elon admitted, because I was afraid. I've built my entire life on logic, on proof, on being the smartest person in the room. I've spent decades proving I was right." He looked up. "But what if I was wrong about the most important thing?" His voice broke on the next sentence. "I told him people would mock me. I told him the media would spin it. My critics would say I'd lost my mind. My shareholders would panic. I told him I wasn't ready to lose everything." A long pause. "But he never pressured me. He didn't force me. He just showed me what's at stake." Elon's hands gripped the podium now, his knuckles white. He scanned the audience slowly. "I saw souls," he whispered. "I saw lives, not in some metaphorical, dreamy sense, but real people, like you, like me. People standing on the edge of eternity, without knowing it." He shook his head slowly, as if still struggling to process it. It wasn't a nightmare. It wasn't a hallucination. It was the clearest I've ever seen anything in my life. Another tear escaped down his cheek, but he let it fall. And so I said yes, not because I was brave, not because I was strong, but because I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. His voice steadied, stronger now, though still full of emotion. "You don't have to believe me," Elon said, eyes sweeping across the crowd. "Honestly, I wouldn't have believed it either. 3 weeks ago, I would have rolled my eyes at everything I'm saying right now." He stepped forward from the podium. "But I'm asking you not to believe me, just to be open, just to ask yourself, what if it's true?" People in the front rows wiped at their eyes. Others sat frozen, locked in an internal wrestle of their own. "What if there really is more than this life?" Elon continued. "What if the love you've always searched for, the peace that never lasts, what if it's all been leading you to something greater?" The room was still. Tension hung like thick fog. And then, slowly, Elon turned back to the crowd. His eyes narrowed, not with judgment, but with clarity. "There's someone here tonight," he said softly. "And this message? It's for you." A chill moved through the auditorium. No one moved. No one breathed. Because in that moment, it felt like the words were meant for every single soul listening. Elon Musk's gaze swept across the hushed auditorium. His voice dropped, almost to a whisper, but each word landed with weight. "Eld showed me faces," he said. "Real people, not symbols or shadows, but names, lives, struggles." The room leaned in, breath held. "There's someone here tonight," Elon continued. "You came because you didn't want to be alone with your thoughts. You've smiled for the cameras, laughed with your friends, but inside, you're barely hanging on." The silence thickened. "You've been planning to end your life." A gasp echoed from somewhere near the front. "I saw you," Elon said gently, "and so did he. Jesus sees you. He knows the pain you hide. He knows the weight you carry, and he wants you to know you're not invisible. You're not alone. You are loved more deeply than you could ever imagine." A wave of emotion rippled through the crowd. And to the one who's been running, from faith, from meaning, from the questions you stopped asking years ago, "I saw you too," Elon added. "He told me about the prayers you whispered as a child, before the world made you hard, before the disappointments, the betrayals, the cynicism." He took a step forward. "I've chased everything the world said would make me happy," he said. "Wealth, success, recognition, innovation. But none of it filled the silence I felt when I closed my eyes at night." His voice cracked slightly. "I used to believe that if I just built enough, created enough, solved enough, I could outrun that emptiness. I couldn't." He paused. "That's why I'm here. Not to promote a product, not to talk about rockets or AI. This isn't about me." He looked into the camera, steady and unflinching. "This is about what's real." A profound stillness overtook the arena. "You don't need to understand everything," Elon said. "You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to be honest enough to ask the questions again." He let those words hang in the air. "Because here's the truth," he said, his voice rising with conviction. "If I'm wrong, then I've risked my reputation, my career, maybe even my legacy, for nothing." Another pause. "But if I'm right," he stepped closer to the edge of the stage. "If I'm right, then eternity is real, and every soul here is standing on the edge of it." He looked directly into the camera again. "So, I'm asking you, are you willing to risk eternity?" A voice rang out from the crowd, sharp and skeptical. "How do we know this isn't just a breakdown?" The question pierced the silence like a blade. All eyes turned toward Elon Musk. He stood still for a moment, absorbing the challenge. Then, slowly, he stepped toward the edge of the stage. His voice was calm, but there was a quiet fire beneath it. "A breakdown," he said, "would be easier." The tension in the room tightened. "A breakdown is something I could recover from, something I could explain with medication, with therapy, with time. But this," he gestured to the lights, the stage, the massive audience frozen in place, "this is something I can't walk away from." He paused, letting the moment breathe. "Because once you've looked into the eyes of the one who made you, once you've heard his voice, not with your ears but in the depths of your soul, you don't get to pretend it didn't happen." The man in the crowd sat down, stunned. Elon's tone softened, filled with reverence. "When I met him, when Jesus stood before me, he didn't look at me with judgment. He looked at me with love. A kind of love I didn't think was possible." He swallowed hard. "El didn't lecture me. He didn't scold me. He just said, 'Elon, you've spent your life trying to take humanity to the stars, but you've never asked why they need to go. You've never wondered what they're searching for in the darkness.'" A few people in the audience were quietly crying now. Elon continued. "Then he told me something that stopped me cold. He said, 'The greatest threat facing humanity isn't extinction. It's separation from God.'" A hush fell over the arena once more. Elon said, "People making decisions with eternal consequences, without even knowing they're eternal. Scientists uncovering truth while missing the truth. People living ordinary lives, not knowing they were born for something extraordinary." He drew in a breath. And then he gave me a message, clear, direct. He looked directly into the camera. May said, "Tell them I love them. Tell them I died for them. Tell them they're running out of time." The weight of those words seemed to land on every shoulder in the room. "I didn't want this," Elon admitted. "I argued. I told him I wasn't qualified, that I'd said things, done things, lived a life too far from faith. But he said, 'I don't call the qualified, I qualify the called.'" A hush turned sacred. "I'm not a preacher," he said. "I'm not a saint. I'm not perfect. But I saw him. I heard him. And I can't stay silent." He gripped the edges of the podium, his knuckles white. "This is the message he gave me. And it's not just for the religious. It's for the broken, the searching, the proud, the exhausted. It's for you." He let that linger. "So now I ask you." He looked over the sea of faces, the camera pulling in tight on his tear-rimmed eyes. "What will you choose?" The room was completely still. For the first time all evening, even the blinking of cameras seemed to slow, as if the world had stopped spinning for a moment. Elon Musk stepped forward, his movement steady but gentle, like a man who had finally put down a weight he didn't know he was carrying. He looked out into the sea of faces, then up to the massive cameras broadcasting his image to millions around the globe. "If you're watching this," he said softly, "and you feel something stirring inside you, that's not me. That's him." His words seemed to bypass the ears and go straight to the heart. A few people in the front row clasped their hands together, unable to hold back the emotion. Others simply stood frozen, too overwhelmed to move. "I used to think that the most powerful thing a human could do was build," he continued. "Build rockets, build companies. build futures. A pause, his voice steadied. But I've learned the most powerful thing we can do is surrender. He drew a long breath, then added, 3 weeks ago I chased the stars. Now I chase something far greater. The screens behind him flickered, still showing blueprints and launch pads. But no one was looking at them anymore. Hembley said I was the man who would lead humanity into the cosmos, he said with a slight, sad smile. But I missed something bigger, someone greater. He closed his eyes for a moment, gathering the words. I met him, I spoke with him, and I came back to tell you, Jesus is real, and he loves you. Simple, direct, true. He opened his eyes and looked out again. Maybe you don't believe me. Maybe you think this is emotional overload, a crisis, a stunt. I understand. 3 weeks ago, I would have thought the same thing. He placed a hand on his chest, not theatrically, but sincerely. But none of those things explain what I saw, what I felt, what I carry in my soul now. The air in the arena had changed. It wasn't just heavy with emotion, it was sacred. Jesus told me there are people listening right now who feel invisible, Elon said. People who think they've messed up too badly or waited too long. People who believe they're too smart for faith or too broken for hope. He looked into the camera. You are seen, you are known, and you are loved. Tears were falling now. Quiet sobs echoed softly from different corners of the massive room. Elon's voice dropped to a whisper. I used to think I was building the future of mankind. Now I know I'm just one man trying to point people to eternity. He gave a final glance toward the wings of the stage where executives and staff waited anxiously, but he stayed centered, calm, and convicted. This wasn't a breakdown, he said, echoing the words from earlier. Then, looking into the lens, he finished. This wasn't a collapse, it was a calling. And with that, Elon Musk closed his eyes, not from weakness, but in peace. While the entire world leaned in, forever changed. What if he's telling the truth? What if everything you just heard wasn't a breakdown, but a breakthrough? A moment that wasn't meant to entertain, but to awaken something inside you? This isn't about whether you agree with Elon Musk. It's not about technology or religion or public image. It's about one simple, profound question. What if Jesus really is who he says he is? For decades, Elon Musk chased the stars, built empires, and pushed the limits of human achievement. And yet, in the moment that shook the world, he didn't talk about rockets. He didn't boast about algorithms or Mars missions. He talked about love. He talked about purpose. He talked about eternity. Faith doesn't begin with certainty. It begins with the courage to ask. So if something inside you is stirring, if you felt a tug in your heart while listening, a whisper you couldn't quite explain, that's worth listening to. Don't rush past this moment. Take a breath. Ask the hard questions. Look deeper than the surface of logic and intellect. Because sometimes the most important discoveries aren't made in labs or boardrooms, but in quiet moments of surrender. And if you've ever felt like faith was for other people, or that you had too many doubts or too many scars, this story is for you. Let it remind you, you don't need all the answers to begin the search. We invite you to subscribe for more inspiring stories. Stories that bridge the gap between reason and belief. Stories that challenge the heart and awaken the soul. Because our channel isn't just about telling stories, it's about creating moments that matter. So share this with someone who needs hope. Rewatch it if something spoke to you. Leave a comment if you've wrestled with the same questions. Because sometimes it takes a collapse to awaken the world. And sometimes it takes one man's surrender to remind us all. This life is not the end of the story.